Today is Good Friday, and tonight we remember the death of Jesus. According to the gospel writer Mark, Jesus was hung on the cross at what would be 9 a.m., and he died at 3 p.m. So he was on the cross for 6 hours. What was happening in those 6 hours? What was Jesus doing? What was God doing? What was going on in those 6 hours? Well, the gospel writer Matthew tells us that for the first 3 hours, everyone who came by the cross, the crowds who came to gaze on Jesus, the religious authorities who had accused Jesus, even one of the other criminals who was hung on a cross next to Jesus, they all mocked him. They mocked what he had said. They said things to him like, "He who said he could save others, he can't even save himself." They mocked him. So for the first 3 hours, the cross, we see the sin of humanity and their scorn and their rejection of Jesus. Then Matthew says at what would be 12 p.m., the whole area became dark, which was a sign of God's judgment. So as the hymn we sing, Man of Sorrows, says, the sin of man and the wrath of God has been on Jesus laid. That's what was going on for those 6 hours. And at the end of those 6 hours, according to Matthew, Jesus cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" So with all that in mind, I want you now to hear how John, who was at the cross, who saw Jesus crucified, I want you to hear how John recounts Jesus' last words. This is John chapter 19, verse 28. After this, Jesus, knowing that all was now finished, said, to fulfill Scripture, "I thirst." A jar full of sour wine stood there, so they put a sponge full of the sour wine on a hyssop branch and held it to his mouth. When Jesus had received the sour wine, he said, "It is finished." And he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. The it that was finished is the judgment of God on the sins of the world, which is what happened on the cross for those 6 hours.